Hi all! I wanted to talk to you about transitions today and how to use them in your writing. So first of all, let's talk about what are transitions. They're words, phrases, or sentences that establish logical connections between sentences and paragraphs. In fact, they act as bridges from one idea to the next, one sentence to the next, or one paragraph to the next. And this is important because often when we are writing, we clearly understand how our ideas connect, but readers cannot always figure that out, so it's important that we establish those connections for them. So transitions function as signs for readers that tell them how to think about, organize, and react to your ideas. And they prevent readers from getting lost when they read your writing, and you certainly don't want that. So when you write, establish clear relationships between one statement and the next, so that what is said in one sentence or paragraph both sets up what is to come and is clearly informed by what has already been said. So everything in your essay is cohesive and connected with each other. You can think about it like each sentence has arms that are reaching backwards and forwards, and that creates flow in your writing, and readers really appreciate this. So questions to ask yourself when you're writing and your ideas are shifting: how do these ideas relate to one another? And what relationship do you want readers to see between those ideas? Here's some examples of some transitional words that change the meaning of these same sentences here. The first one's chronological. It says, Jones found that pigeons were dirty animals. Previously, Fillmore stated that pigeons made great pets. The second is contradictory. Jones found that pigeons were dirty animals. On the other hand, Fillmore stated that pigeons made great pets. And the third uses nevertheless as a concession. So you can see that by changing even that one transitional word, it can change the meaning and the way you're connecting the ideas. These are signaling readers as to your meaning, so it's important that you choose the right transitional words. So here's some examples of transitional phrases you can use. In other words, that could echo a previous sentence. In addition might add something to what you already said. For example can offer an example to back up what you've said, and yet can modify what you said. And these transitions are usually placed at the start of your sentences, and there they can serve as a signal to readers as to where your text is going. And they should operate so unobtrusively in your writing that readers don't really even notice that they're there. So here's just a very brief list of a few transitions. There's many, many more transitions than this, but this is just an example. So if you wanted to add to something that you've already said, you could use a transitional word like also, furthermore, or in addition. If you want to give an example, you could say, for example, for instance, or specifically. If you're comparing two things, you might say likewise or similarly. Or if you're contrasting things, you might say conversely, however, or on the other hand. So you can see how simple these words and phrases are that connect the ideas in your writing. So next, let's name the transition here. The lens we view the world through can be colored by supplanted ideas that have unconsciously come to us from our family, friends, and the world around us. For example, a person who grows up in a home that holds racially prejudiced viewpoints might hold certain ideologies regarding racial superiority, class distinction, and equality that cause him to stereotype people based on race and make other assumptions that are not valid. So you can see here just that simple phrase, for example, connects these two ideas and shows that this is an example that's supporting this topic right here. Another thing you can do is use the repetition of key words. So we don't want to repeat a word over and over and over to where it's monotonous, but we can use repetition to some degree to connect our ideas. So it says to repeat yourself with a difference, which basically means saying the same thing you've just said, but in a slightly different way that avoids sounding monotonous. To effectively connect the parts of your argument and keep it moving forward, be careful not to leap from one idea to a different idea or introduce new ideas cold. Instead, try to build bridges between your ideas by echoing what you've just said while simultaneously moving your text into new territory. So we know that an essay is a progression of ideas. It can be analysis, and oftentimes, and we want to make sure that everything's connected, but also moving forward as we go. So using those repetitive keywords at times can connect the text, and then we can introduce new ideas and move the text forward. So let's look at, here's a repetition here in a couple of ways. We can see that word culture highlighted in red. And this is talking about the Navajo tribe and their traditions, how they've held on to their traditions in the first paragraph. And the second paragraph shifts to the idea of the Gambian people and their traditions. So let's look at how this transitional phrase works here. To this day, the Navajo tribe in New Mexico practice their ancient language, traditions, culture, and religious ceremonies. They find meaning in dressing in brilliant attire and performing sacred rituals, and participate in cultural events yearly to maintain their valued traditions. Even though Native Americans live in modern society, they still take time to participate in their rich traditions. Their ability to preserve and pass their culture on to the next generation is admirable. Now notice the transitional sentence here. Native Americans are not the only people who have resilience when it comes to culture. So you can see that repetition of the word culture there helps transition into the new idea. But we also have a transitional idea here that Native Americans are not the only people who have resilience. Also the Gambians are. So that's a very smooth connector between the two, and it shifts into the new idea while momentarily reaching back to the old idea to show how that connection is made. Here is an example of a sentence-to-sentence transition. In the first example, we have ideas that are somewhat connected, but there's not an explanation as to how as much. So if we look at it, it says Beowulf was a hero who cared about the value of his reputation. He was a protector of his people, pledged to uphold truth and justice and respect tradition, is entitled to affirm that this man was born to a distinction. His adherence to honorable conduct resulted in the respect of his people through the duration of his reign. So if you look at it, there's some different ideas at play. Beowulf's a hero. He's a protector of his people, and his honorable conduct results in respect. So you can see that these ideas are connected, but might not be quite flowing well enough or clear enough to readers to show them how to more easily connect those ideas. So the second one says, Beowulf was a hero who cared about the value of reputation. He was known far and wide as a tall, strong warrior who defeated every enemy, a protector of his people, pledged to uphold truth and justice and to respect tradition. Beowulf understood the importance of reputation and lived up to his, honoring the admiration his people had for him by striving to uphold the standards of the heroic code. His adherence to honorable conduct resulted in the respect of his people through the duration of his reign. So you can see by adding explanation in between your sentences, and this is a little bit more advanced way of transitioning between ideas. It's not a simple transitional phrase, but it's a connection of ideas as well. And it makes the writing much more smooth. It makes it flow. You can also see that there are repetitive ideas to here. It talks about Beowulf being a hero and the heroic code. It talks about reputation both times. It talks about upholding truth and justice and adherence to honorable conduct. And then also the admiration his people had for him and the respect of his people. So we see how cohesive this paragraph becomes by adding that explanation, and we have the repetition of ideas, but they're said in different ways oftentimes. And this is a great way to make your writing flow and help readers' understanding. So finally, let's just review. What is a transition? It is a word, a phrase, or a sentence that establishes a logical connection between your ideas. How do transitions help your readers? Well, they can help them make sense of your ideas and how they connect. Can prevent readers from getting lost in your writing as well. And what are some strategies for connecting your ideas? You can use single words or phrases to connect, just transitional words. You can use repetition of key words or ideas. And you can provide explanation between sentences that connect those ideas smoothly. So I hope this has helped you, and if you have any questions, feel free to email me.